talking about structured delivery. By the way, when we talk about structured delivery, we also need to remember about smooth transitions. We cannot have a structured delivery of our spontaneous speech if there are no smooth transitions. And in the next exercises, we'll talk about them. So what is a structured response? Earlier, I talked about the three parts of a response: the opening, the body, and the conclusion. Now, we're talking here of a spontaneous speech. Again, this is not Toastmasters table topics, okay? So this is not 1 to 2 minutes. A spontaneous speech, as I've mentioned, can be as short as 30 seconds. It can even be shorter than that, but that can be a very, very short speech. It can be as long as many hours. So depending on the purpose of your spontaneous speech, you have to make sure that you would still deliver a structured speech. So let's talk about the three parts of a structured response. Opening must always have a punch, right? In order for your spontaneous speech to be memorable, to be effective, to engage your audience, you must always make sure that you start with a punch. How do you start with a punch? Earlier, I think Julius asked about questions. You can start by asking a question, or you can start with a controversial statement, a startling statement. For example, you can say, what is an example of a startling statement? Ladies and gentlemen, 8 out of 10 individuals in this room will die of tuberculosis. Right? That's shocking. That's startling. So people will pay attention, will listen. That's 8 out of 10. I don't want to be one of the 8. I want to be one of the 2. Tell me how I can be one of the 2. So this type of opening can deliver with a punch. Question, a startling question. Some people, those who can really sing well, they would start with a song, and it's always effective. If your audience is Filipino, I can assure you, a song for an opening is always effective. But if your voice is challenged, then unless it's a humorous, spontaneous speech, you have to reconsider your actions. Okay, I did it once. I bummed out of my speech. I think they didn't like my singing. Although my mom said that I have a very good, I have a golden voice. And make sure your opening must set up for an easy conclusion. So in Toastmasters table topics, I would always remind my proteges or my fellow Toastmasters that the first idea or the first response that comes to your mind is the best response that you can actually give. Do not change your ideas in the middle of your speech. If you do that, your answer will become incoherent. Worst, you'll lose your train of thought and you'll end up failing in completing your response. So once you have started your response, once you have delivered your opening, make sure it will set up for a smooth and easy conclusion, and do not change in the middle of your presentation. Okay? And finally, it is always effective if your spontaneous speech will lead into a story style response, the conversational type of response. Avoid sounding like, avoid pontificating. Avoid sounding like you're preaching. This type of speaking will alienate your audience. Your audience would always wanted that to hear somebody who talks to them, right? But do not sound pontificating. Do not sound preachy. Okay, so be conversational. Story style response is always the best. So that's how you craft a very good opening. Any questions so far? Do you have any ideas on how to open with a punch other than the three examples I have given? Use your chat to share your ideas. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do this.
Sir Nomel, can I raise a question that was sent to our group chat earlier?
Sure, please.
Okay. A participant, Rico, raised a question. He asked, "How can I improve my coherence?"
All right. We are actually in the part where we are discussing the structure of your response. This is how you can actually improve your coherence. Coherence simply refers to the understandability of your response. And how can you make sure that your audience would understand you? Again, the best the best suggestion I can tell you or share with you is once you come up with your response, the first idea, commit to that idea. Do not change your response anymore. I can assure you, the first thought that comes to your mind is your best idea, is your best response. If you change that in the middle of your speech, of your response, that's when you will have problems with coherence. But that's only one part of coherence. Another element that can affect coherence is your another factor that can affect understandability is your faculty, your grip of the language. Make sure that we're not talking here of accents. Okay, accent is dead. That's controversial. You can quote me on that. Why? A very good example, a good evidence is that for the last 4, 5, 6 years, no, I think for more than 10 times in the last 15 years of the World Championship of Public Speaking in Toastmasters International, more than 10 non native English speakers have won. If accent is a factor, they should have not won. But they won. Why? Because it's not about accent anymore, it's about coherence. For as long as you can enunciate your words, for as long as you can use proper inflection that can be understood by your audience, that's good enough. I speak with a strong Filipino accent. Sometimes I even speak with a very strong Visayan accent. I'm from Cebu. But I would always make sure that my accent will not affect my understandability. So coherence refer to your organization of thoughts and to the actual vocalization of your words. So that includes enunciation, inflection, and intonation. Grammar is also a factor, but I can assure you, our audience today is more tolerant. For as long as they can still understand you, they can forgive you for small grammar lapses. But if 95% of your language, of your use of grammar is really bad, is awful, then I would suggest spend some time first to work on improving your use of English because that can affect understandability. But otherwise, a few lapses here and there can be tolerated by an audience. Fact is, again, if you review the World Championships of Public Speaking, not all world champions were able to use 100% perfect grammar. There were lapses, but they were never a factor. They never affected the coherence of the presentations. Okay, that applies to spontaneous speaking as well. All right, Rico, was I able to answer your question? Do you have any follow-up questions? Cite common words and phrases to make opening or speech in general more conversational. All right. The best recommendation I would give is always involve your audience. Instead of using I, we, use we. You can actually say today, if you remember how I opened today's workshop, I opened by saying, welcome, today we will. I didn't say today I will. So by involving them in your presentation, making them part of the presentation, you can actually use a very common word that can immediately engage them and that can easily be understood by your audience. All right, coherence and ad lib goes together. Yes, they actually go together. Again, ad lib does not necessarily mean that you will be incoherent. You will only be incoherent when you are ad libbing if your ad lib itself is incoherent. Even if it's an ad lib, make sure that you organize your thoughts. And how can you do that? Do not plunge immediately into speaking up. You can take a few minutes, a few seconds to organize your thoughts. Again, the first step is decide on the idea, decide on a response, and then commit to that response. Once you have committed to the response, start organizing. Part of of that initial organizing is prepare your opening with a punch, and then everything will follow. The only reason why we falter when we are speaking spontaneously is after we have started, even if we have started with a very strong opening, in the middle of our response, we change tack. We introduce a new idea, or we turn around and take a different route to completing our statement. That's when our response become become incoherent because we are now introducing new ideas. So again, always commit yourself to the first idea that you think of and make sure to complete that presentation. Any other ideas that would prop up in your mind, reserve them for your next speaking opportunity. I can assure you, you will never run out of opportunities for spontaneous speaking because our lives is defined by spontaneous speaking in and out of Toastmasters. All right. What are my thoughts on starting an impromptu speech with a quote from an esteemed popular influencer? Um, this is actually a very good way to open an impromptu speech, Julius. However, I would caution you to make sure that the quotation that you'll be using is not something that is overly used. An overused quotation does not punch anymore. A very good example, what is a very popular quotation that if we use today will not really impress our audience? Yes, time is gold. It has been used so many times that when you start a speech with ladies and gentlemen, time is gold. They will no longer pay attention. They have heard it numerous times. So come up with something different. Come up with something that would either startle them or shock them. And that's how you can actually use an effective quotation. Whether it's an esteemed popular influencer or a celebrity, make sure that it's not something that has been that has not that is not overused. Okay. Can you give examples regarding story style responses? Story style response, Georgina, is simply conversational. This is no longer the age of oratorical speeches. Oratory can work well if you are actually expected to deliver an oration. But if you are talking about spontaneous speeches, it has to be conversational. It's just like when you talk to your friends on an idle chat, or when you converse with your family members, the regular conversations that we do, that should be the type a of a story style response. It's like just a normal conversation. You would just inject vocal variety and gestures to animate your presentation. But again, remember, vocal variety and gestures will only be important if they would add value to your presentation. However, if your spontaneous speech is about, let's say, let me see, right. If you're asked to share your opinion about, let's say you met your friends, and one of your friends asks you about your opinion about, say, okay, um, pardon me for the example, about the closure, about the shutdown of ABS-CBN. If there is really no need for you to include vocal variety and gestures, you can do away with them. Simply tell them your opinion. That's already conversational. However, if you are, say, in a formal meeting in your company, all right, there's a departmental meeting, and your boss asks you to stand up and talk about the impact of the shutdown on your operations, then perhaps in that case, use of some gestures and vocal variety can add impact and credibility to your presentation. So it should always It should always not be the case that there is no hard and fast rules as far as the use of the other speech elements, vocal variety, gestures, when you are presenting a spontaneous speech. It depends on the situation and the occasion for which you are asked to speak spontaneously. I am an addict. Yeah, that is a shocking opening, definitely. Especially if you do not look like one, or especially if you're speaking before an audience of professionals, and then suddenly you would announce to everybody that you're an addict, they will pay attention. Why would you say that in front of them? Yep, very good. That's a very good example of a shocking but engaging opening. All right. Any other points or clarifications or questions? Otherwise, we'll move to the meat of our structured response, the body of our spontaneous speech. Okay, so now for the body of your speech, depends on the length of your spontaneous speech. Again, these are the um, generic or the general recommendations or reminders. Number one, make sure that your ideas in the body of your speech must flow easily from one subject to another or to the next. Now, if your spontaneous speech is only 15 seconds, chances are you can only talk about one subject, one idea. You cannot inject more than one idea in a 15-second speech. Okay? In a 30-minute speech, probably you can put in a couple of ideas. In an hour-long speech, definitely more ideas. So, if you will be discussing a couple of ideas, make sure you flow from one idea to another smoothly. How do you do that? Use transitions. This is where transitions would come in. And what are smooth transitions? Um, in college, we were taught about if you have expository English or perhaps English 101, we were actually taught on how to use or what I forgot the actual term. There are actually words that we can use as transition statements or transition words to move us from one idea to another. And if you notice, among Filipinos, we rarely use them. We only use a couple of them. We love to use but, however, and I think that's it. We don't use the other words like moreover, apparently. Yes, very good, Gigi. I'm glad there's an English teacher in the audience. Conjunctions, yes. Conjunctions are actually the best tool to score or to include smooth transitions from one idea to another. Your conjunctions can actually connect ideas or can introduce new ideas. Use them. Do not be afraid to use conjunctions. Haha, yes, Gigi. Yes, in Tagalog, pang-ugnay. Sorry, guys. That's why I will never teach grammar or balarila. Yeah. See, how many of us actually have used apparently, moreover, and many of these conjunctions? Rarely. We are so used to but and however. Let's expand our vocabulary by using more conjunctions. All right, and using them will not kill us. Wow, googling conjunctions. All right, Jamil. Okay, right. Next, prevent the stuttered effect. Have you seen or have you heard a speaker whose style of speaking is like a jagged knife, the staccato style? If I think if it's singing, it's almost robotic. It's not even mechanical. It's robotic. Avoid that. Normally, we start to speak we stutter when we speak if we have not organized our thoughts. Number one. Number two, if we are changing ideas in the middle of a presentation. That's why it's very essential. I will not stop in reiterating that once you have thought of your first idea, commit to that first idea only. Because once you start changing your ideas in the middle of a long or a short presentation, say goodbye to success. Because it's going to be very difficult. Very few speakers can actually recover from changing ideas in the middle of a presentation. Okay. Number three, keep the number of points to a minimum. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. If your spontaneous speech is only 15 seconds, do not include a lot of ideas. It will not work. In fact, you cannot even expound on an idea. In a 15-second presentation, you can probably just say, "Hi, I am all for it. I agree. I support you. Thank you." That's already spontaneous speech. And that's probably around 5 seconds. Make it longer. Probably you can just explain why you agree with, why you're voting for this motion or for this proposition, right? So keep your points to a minimum. Be conscious of your time allotment, because normally you're actually be told, um, Nomel, can you say something about the newlyweds? Come on, please, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. They would actually tell you how long they can actually give you. All right. Number four, avoid rambling. Although I can also say that sometimes rambling can actually be a device, but generally avoid rambling. What is rambling? When you can no longer when you can no longer when you are supposed to end your presentation and you cannot end it, and you start again by introducing a new idea or going back to your opening and restarting the whole speech. So rambling is when you start to repeat things that you have already mentioned. So avoid that. I think this is also a problem with us Filipinos. We find it difficult to end anything. That's why our goodbyes are always very, very long. Have you noticed how many times we have to say bye bye, goodbye, sige before we actually leave and go? It applies to our spontaneous speaking as well. So we need to discipline ourselves. When we have reached the conclusion and it's time for us to end our speech, end it. End it with a plumb, with a punch, smile, acknowledge your audience, sit down. Do not ramble. And finally, I think this is the most important point. Make sure to be honest and sincere with your views. It's very easy to fake our presentations. It's very easy to fake our statements. But I can assure you, there would always be a member of the audience who will see through your dishonesty. And you don't want that to happen, because one member of the audience who will criticize you, or who will speak against you, is enough to start the ball rolling to question your credibility or your integrity as a speaker. So always be sincere and honest with your views. If you do not agree with something, say so. It's your opinion. They will not crucify you for your opinion, unless we are not in a democracy. And my lips are sealed. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? Let's move on to the conclusion of the structured response. I have 50 minutes left. Oh my God, we still have a lot of things to do. All right. So conclusion. Make sure to stay on track with your introduction. I mentioned earlier, with your introduction, make sure to have an easy move to transition to your conclusion. So your conclusion must always stay on track with your introduction. This will establish the coherence of your response. And always end with oomph. What is an oomph? Always end with something your audience can remember. Right? What is a memorable conclusion? Again, a shocking statement, a startling conclusion, a question that would challenge your audience to think, to ponder on something, right? So ending with oomph is always important. If you will end without a bomb, a conclusion with an oomph, you will waste your entire presentation, because people will not remember you. Your conclusion, your last few words must be something your audience will always remember, right? And finally, as I mentioned earlier, while we need to avoid rambling in the body of our speech, sometimes in the conclusion, rambling can be a device. But if you would actually include rambling in your conclusion, make sure it would look natural, because a fake rambling is as bad as rambling. All right. All right. There's a question here. What are your thoughts on ending spontaneous speech with a call to action? Definitely. I would always love to end with a call to action. Wherever it is applicable, end with a call to action. Why? Because it's your connection with your audience. If you can end with a call to action and your audience respond to that, then you can smile and tell yourself that you have succeeded in your spontaneous speech. All right. So I will not. If you have questions, feel free to post. I'll just proceed with the presentation so that we can cover the more important parts. We are going into the Toastmaster table topics topic. All right. So now the question now is, what if we are not able to respond immediately to our question? What if we cannot start our spontaneous speech? What can we do? What are the stalling techniques that we can actually use? There are essentially three stalling techniques that you can use: blatant, subtle, and props. What is a blatant stalling? If you are seated and you're asked to come in front to speak, what I would do to stall is I would walk slowly. Remember, walk like a beauty queen, walk in slow motion, all right? But do not do not abuse it because it can be too obvious. Just do it slow enough so that you can have ample time to organize your thought. That's a blatant stall technique. People will know that you are stalling, but they would forgive you for that because they will find it cute, right? A subtle stall is you can actually ask the person to repeat the question. Sarah, what was your question again? The truth is, you actually heard the question and you understood the question, but you're trying to organize your thoughts. Another way of a subtle stall is ask them to. Can you clarify your question? What is your point? What would you like to know? Although you know the question and you know the answer, but you're trying to stall because you're trying to organize your thoughts first. And the third stalling technique is the use of props. This is going to be difficult because you will not always have a prop that can be used that is relevant to the question given to you. But there are instances that this will work. For example, you attended a wedding and you were off the cup asked to say something about the newlyweds. Then what you can do is you can ask for the waiter to give you a glass of wine so that it can give you ample time to organize your thoughts. You can ask for a fork or ask for a slice of the cake. Ask for, may I ask the parents of the newlyweds to please come forward? You know that they're outside, so calling them back into the hall will take time. So these are use of props, and props does not necessarily mean objects. Props can actually be another person. But this will only apply if they're actually available. But essentially, these are the three stalling techniques that we can use. What are some techniques that you would suggest to avoid being perceived as fake or insincere? Um, on an online platform like this, it's going to be very easy. All you need to do is to make sure, as much as possible, speak straight to the camera. You can never be wrong. If you speak straight to the camera, your audience would always see you as speaking to them one by one on one. And that's building rapport. That's building engagement. Although we are not personally side by side, you would feel that I am with you because you will think that I am speaking directly to you. If you're wearing eyeglasses, remove them because a speaker on an online platform like this wearing an eyeglass, if the glare of the light is reflected on the glasses, your audience will not see your eyes. If they don't see your eyes, there will be no connection. Eye contact is your best friend when you are communicating online. In person, there are many techniques to actually express your sincerity. Number one is, again, eye contact is one of them. Number two is nuances, the small nods that we can do, the soft gestures that we can use. What are sample examples of soft gestures? An open palm is a soft gesture. A clenched fist is not a soft gesture. Use soft gestures whenever they are applicable because they connect with your audience. Touch your heart is a way of telling your audience that you're sincere. Whenever we touch our heart, it's like telling them that this is the truth. Another blatant way of telling them that you're sincere is doing this. But this will not work all the time. All right? Yes, you can. A rhetorical question is also a good way to end a presentation. And it's also good because what is a rhetorical question? It's a question that does not expect an answer immediately. So this is something that you can throw to your audience and they will think about it. All right, let's move on. If I have missed a question, just remind me later. I'll answer them. So all right, there are other things that I'd like to recommend to you if you will have problems with structuring your speech. Jamil, can you just show all of them? I think there's 6 of them. 5. So these are the things that you need to remember. Let's say, okay, what if you don't know the question? You don't know the answer to the question, or you cannot answer the question. So what do? Number 1, prevention is still the key. Avoid them. If you can avoid them, avoid them. But that's why it's called spontaneous speaking. In many instances, you cannot avoid them. So if you cannot avoid them, what is the key? Prevention. Make sure that you stockpile on your knowledge. Any knowledge that you have, you can actually use for any situation. You just have to tailor fit them to the situation and to the occasion. Okay? Ad-lib, joke about it. The best way to open a response if you cannot answer the question, whether you cannot answer it immediately or you cannot answer it at all, is to joke about it. But be careful. Jokes does not work all the time. The only jokes that will work 100% all the time is a deprecation, a self-deprecation. If you poke fun at yourself, it will never bump out. People would always laugh at a joke about ourselves. But if your joke is about another person, that's a risk. All right. Another way is to skirt around the question. Instead of answering the question, politicians do this a lot of times. They would try to answer by not answering the question. So that's skirting around the question. The best method is skewing keywords. Listen to the question, identify keywords from the question, and build a response using these keywords. In many instances, you can actually share a response that is as close as answering the question if you try to define keywords. And finally, but very risky, just be honest. Tell them you do not know the answer to the question, but you are willing to look into this, and the next time you will give them your response. That's a commitment, and make sure to live up to your commitment. If you do that, make sure to give them your answer at another time. Give an example of skewing using keywords. I need a question. Let's say a question. All right. Let's say I don't know anything about the ABS-CBN shutdown, but I was asked if I believe that ABS-CBN has violated a law. All right. So that's a question. Nomel, do you think ABS-CBN violated a law? And I don't know whether they have violated the law or not. So what I do is I identify keywords from the question. What are the keywords there? Violated, law. So this might be 2 keywords there. And then what my response would be, first, I'll be honest. I'm really very sorry. I am not following the issue about the ABS-CBN shutdown. But my take on this is government, assuming government is not playing politics here, the government will not order ABS-CBN to stop operations if they have not violated any law. So let us presume that laws were violated. But it does not mean that ABS-CBN intentionally violated these laws. Perhaps, so I'm playing safe here. So that's an example of taking keywords and skewing your keywords so that you can provide a response. All right. Okay, let's move on. Ooh, lots of questions. All right, I need a break. So before we proceed, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask, may I have your attention on the picture on the screen? Do you see a man? If you can see a man, use the chat. Tell me, where is the man? At the right? What right? Up, upper right, middle right, lower right. All right, lower left, at the right, lower part. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me answer first. The man is actually Jamil. You have your screen, diba? You can actually encircle this, Jamil, using your remote, your pointer. Uh, I see. See the title of my presentation: Under Pressure, Speaking Spontaneously. There, that's a man. It's above speaking spawn. That's the man. I'll explain to you why I included this exercise. All right, there's a question. Is asking the audience their opinion on the question that you don't know a good strategy at table good strategy in table topics? Yes, but why would you ask? Why would you ask that question? So you have to answer. You have to you have to ask. You have to tell yourself first. Why would you ask that question? If your intention is to elicit a response from the audience, that's fine. That's all right. There are no strict rules in preparing table topics questions. And by the way, in table topics of Toastmasters, you are not limited to questions. You can actually ask their opinion on a statement, on a quotation, or you can ask them to provide a book review, a movie review. All right? The one with the, there is no man. There is a man. It's already circled. All right, bowed head, yes. All right, so what's the purpose of this exercise? In spontaneous speaking, it is very, as I think I mentioned this earlier, it is very important that we pay attention on little things, on the details. Why? Because this is where we can actually anchor our presentation. Little things can also add up to our stockpile of knowledge and information. So by paying attention on little things like this, we become more observant, right? We can easily respond, and we can actually tell the temperature of our audience, whether we are still they are still with us, they can follow us or not. So it's a very important element of spontaneous speaking. 35 minutes to go. All right, okay, let's rush. Now I think we are now going to start discussing. I think this is what most of you are waiting for: Toastmasters table topics. All right. So what's the difference between spontaneous speaking and table topics in Toastmasters? Nothing. Toastmasters table topics is actually a subset of spontaneous speaking. Spontaneous speaking is the general umbrella of any forms of speaking that is impromptu, that is without preparation. That's why it's called spontaneous speaking. And table topics is a perfect example of spontaneous speaking. So, remember earlier, I think there were around 8 attendees, participants today, who were non-Toastmasters. This is actually an invitation for you. If you want to pursue training or learning or mastering spontaneous speaking, I would encourage you to join a Toastmasters club, because in Toastmasters, we have a segment called Table Topics, where you will be given the opportunity to learn and master spontaneous speaking. And it's a safe ground, a safe avenue where you can actually commit mistakes while learning. So that's an open invitation to all non-Toastmasters in the audience. Now let's talk about Toastmasters table topics. Okay, so everything that we have discussed earlier applies to table topics, to Toastmasters table topics. The only difference is this type of speaking is very, very time limited. It's only 1 to 2 minutes. If it's a contest, speaking less than 1 minute, or more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds will disqualify you. And you don't want to be disqualified in a Toastmasters contest. Toastmaster is unforgiving when it comes to time management. So you have to make sure that your spontaneous speech or your table topic is within 1 minute to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Your safe bet is 1 to 2 minutes, right? Now, let's talk about the patterns of responding to Toastmasters table topics. In Toastmasters, there are essentially three popular speaking or response patterns. The response patterns are techniques on how to answer a table topic or a spontaneous question. So the three most popular patterns are PREP, PPF, SMG. Now, there are different variants of PREP, PPF, and SMG. We will also be sending you a copy, a file, a PowerPoint presentation of a listing of all the variants of the three major patterns. But today, we will only discuss the three patterns since these are the most commonly used patterns in Toastmasters. I will discuss first the last two, PPF and SMG, and then we'll go back to PREP because that's the format that I'd like you to focus on. Okay, so let's talk about PPF first. PPF stands for past, present, and future, or this is also called the historical method. This is probably one of the more difficult response pattern because this will require knowledge. All right, if you are big into informative speeches, a historical response pattern is perfect. But the most difficult element of the PPF pattern is you need to make sure that you will be covering the three elements of history: the past, the present, and the future. So when you respond by talking about something that had happened in the past, something happening in the present, and something that will happen in the future. Sorry, I'm short on time, so please kindly mute. Thank you. All right. So I will no longer give you an example of the PPF pattern. I will include this in the PowerPoint presentation that I'll be sending to you, right? But PPF is again, remember, PPF is a historical pattern. It's difficult, it's tough, but if you are able to use this smoothly, I can assure you that you will be able to provide your audience with so much information. This is best for informative speeches, right? The next pattern is SMG, or story, message, game. So imagine in 1 to 2 minutes, you will have to tell a story. And then immediately after that story, you need to tell your audience your message. What's the moral lesson of your story? And then finally, end your speech with a conclusion, the game, which is actually the takeaway or the call to action. What do you want your audience to do after hearing this story, after learning the lesson of the story? Normally in contests, SMG is the perfect fit. Many table topic speakers win in table topics contest by using SMG. But again, there is no guarantee that you'll win if you use SMG, because even if you use SMG, if it's not effective, it's not effective. So the big risk with SMG is time. It's difficult to fit in a story, a moral lesson, and a call to action in 1 to 2 minutes. So many speakers who use SMG in competitions or in their table topics responses, they normally have pocket stories ready. What are pocket stories? These are stories that you have already prepared in advance that are designed to be delivered in 1 minute so that you have another minute to tell your lesson and your call to action. So many Toastmasters, veteran Toastmasters who use SMG, they, believe me, they always have pocket stories with them. I also have my pocket stories, and members of the Smyrna City Toastmasters Club and managers for Christ Toastmasters Club, which Sarah did not mention as my second club in the Philippines. Members of these two clubs know that whenever I use SMG, I would always use the same story. But I can always use the same story for different questions, and I can always provide them with different moral lessons and different takeaways. Don't ask me for an example. If we have time later on, I'm willing to share with you my pocket story. But I'm sure Sarah would uh, would mention that in the chat now. All right, let's go back to the prep. Why prep? Sorry. So prep is position, reason, example, position. Why would I like to focus on prep? Because I want all of you to master this response pattern. Why? Because this is the easiest pattern. You can easily master this pattern, and once you master this pattern, I can assure you, you can easily develop confidence in tackling spontaneous speaking. You will find it very easy to organize coherent responses because the response pattern allows you to easily develop a full response, a complete response. So, what is a PREP? First, tell your audience your position. Do you agree or do you disagree with the statement or with the question? Do you approve or disapprove? Do you like or dislike? Choose between an option. Is it a yes or a no? Is it believe or disbelieve? So tell us your position. And then in one sentence, tell us your reason. Answer the question, why? And then the actual body of your speech would actually be examples, illustrations to support or to expound on your reason. And then finally, simply repeat your opening statement, your position, envelope. Repeat your opening statement by reiterating, that's why, in conclusion, therefore, repeat the opening. Of course, this is a very oversimplified example of a PREP response. I wanted always remember that you need to make sure that your opening will open with a punch and your conclusion will conclude with an Okay. All right. Should there always be a personal or someone's story in a table topic speech? No, it depends. If you can include a story, that's well and good. But if there is no need to include a story, that's fine. If you're going to use PREP, you can actually use stories as part of your examples. But sometimes stories would not fit in as perfect examples in a PREP response. Sometimes just providing them with additional info would be sufficient. Right? So stories or personal stories would be best if you're going to use the SMG pattern. All right, can we use a hybrid of prep and SMG format? Yes. There are no rules that would actually deduct points if you do not use the pattern strictly. The purpose of actually encouraging our members, Toastmasters, to use the pattern strictly is for training purposes. We cannot, our members will not learn and adapt to a specific discipline of responding to questions if they would start using hybrid. I would recommend you use hybrid of these responses once you are very comfortable with Toastmasters table topics. But if you are just a beginning Toastmaster, I would strongly recommend to commit yourself to a specific pattern, in this case, the PREP pattern. Once you are very confident in tackling table topics using PREP, you can either start practicing with the other patterns or start using hybrid. That's fine. True to tell, in many instances, I would always use a hybrid when I respond to table topics. I would always use a basic structure of PREP and I would include stories in between. All right, 25 minutes to go. I think we'll cancel the other pair session. We'll just proceed with the other breakout session, Sarah. Let's see if we have time. All right. So, no, we will not skip the breakout group. All right. This is the time. So, fellow Toastmasters, all right, and ladies and gentlemen, we will be going into another breakout session now. Again, this will be pairs. This time, this is what we'll be doing, okay? I want since sales and selling is essentially one of our most common human activity, whether you're a Toastmaster or not, you will be selling something, whether a service or a product. So this time, I will be challenging all of you to sell this toy. This is a slinky. This is a very popular children's toy, right? So I want you to sell Slinky to your partner using the PREP pattern, right? So the first speaker will speak first for 1 to 2 minutes, sell the Slinky to the second speaker. After the response, switch. The second speaker will sell the Slinky to the first speaker. Now, this is the challenge. If you are the second speaker, you cannot repeat whatever the first speaker, whatever the first speaker has said. Okay, so if you want to have the right of first refusal, be the first speaker. The second speaker cannot repeat anything that the first speaker has mentioned. Okay, so the objective is to sell the Slinky. Are we clear? Are we ready? Any questions? If none, Sarah, let's go on a breakout session. Pairs.
All right, to our participants this morning, you will be notified by Zoom that there will be a breakout room number that you will join in. So please just click on yes. Sir Nomel, how many minutes should I allot?
4 to 5 minutes. All right. Jamil, can you prepare the slides? Okay. So how was it? Did you enjoy our exercise? Were there very good salespeople in the room? Awesome. For those who were very good salespeople, I'll recruit you. That's your first test. It's actually a sales test. Now, why sales test for our exercise today? I decided to select this because I wanted us to feel a real life scenario and a real life example of how we can actually apply the Toastmasters speaking pattern or response pattern of PRE. And I actually joined one breakout room. I listened to Georgina. Good job, Georgina. Amazing. Georgina was really able to sell the Slinky. She talked about the Slinky as both a toy and a device to teach our kids motor skills. So that's really very impressive. She was spot on the benefit and the value of the object. That's really very good, Georgina. My only recommendation for Georgina and other speakers, if you are speaking online, always remember that you are talking to that you should be talking to the camera because that's your audience. Whoever is behind the camera is your target audience, your target market. So if you start speaking and looking elsewhere, the other party would feel that you are ignoring them. So it's very important to always pay attention to the camera, right? But otherwise, good job, Georgina. And ladies and gentlemen, we cannot hear this, but you all deserve a big round of applause. Give yourselves a virtual round of applause. Good job, everyone. All right, let's proceed. Okay, so before we go on to our next activity, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions so far as Toastmaster table topics is concerned? So I think what I wanted to reiterate here is that table topics, the Toastmasters table topics is again just a subset of spontaneous speaking. If you master table topics, if you join Toastmasters and master table topics, I can assure you the benefit is not just in Toastmasters. The benefit goes beyond Toastmasters. It will benefit your relationship with your family, with your co-workers, with your staff, with your community, with everybody. Spontaneous speaking is not just a method, a means to communicate with another person. It's actually the best form of reaching out and building relationships. And I sincerely believe that our world will be a better place to live in if we can only coherently express ourselves, respond to questions, and share our thoughts and our ideas to other people. We can bridge the gap between and among ourselves and between and among us if we can only speak spontaneously, coherently, effectively, and confidently. So this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will go on another breakout session. All right. Please take note of the URL. https://shrib.com/? Sarah, there is a way for you to share this, right? Or if you have your phones with you, you can take a picture of the QR code, right? And you will find this page. So what will happen here is we will go into another breakout of this time of 5 members per group. Select a team leader. The leader will facilitate the table topic session. Each member of the group shall answer 1 question from this URL. All right, I have prepared 10 questions. So if everybody will be able to speak and there's still time, go on a second round. The team leader will also answer a question. All right. So if there are questions, yes, okay, there's the link. If there are no more questions, Sarah, let's go on a breakout room. 5 participants per room. Time limit is 15 minutes. All the best and enjoy table topics or spontaneous speaking. Again, use the PREP pattern. Okay, welcome back. So how was it? Using your chat, can you please share your experience during our breakout session? It would have been better if we could actually, if actually we had assigned an evaluator for each of the breakout groups. Unfortunately, it's impossible with the limitation of the Zoom meeting format. If we actually have the Zoom rooms, the more expensive account, we could actually do that. So we cannot assign evaluators. But I'd like to hear your feedback on how was it during the activity. Mental block, but I had fun. Yes, yes. Mental block is actually normal. If you're just starting with the spontaneous speaking, expect a lot of this. But I would encourage you, do not be discouraged, do not give up, even if you will falter in your initial attempts at spontaneous speaking. It's very normal. The only people who do not improve in spontaneous speaking are the ones who stop and has given up. But the ones who have blossomed are the ones who kept on going. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not stop. Again, remember, you stop growing when you stop learning. So the opportunity for us to continuously learn is if you do not stop in reaching out for the opportunity for us to improve. All right. Yes. Thank you very much, Jason. Had fun speaking engagement. Constant practice makes perfect. True. True. And that's the idea with Toastmasters table topics. It's actually our regular exercise. That's why I love to attend Toastmaster meetings, and I would always volunteer in table topics. That's how I get my money's worth. Whenever I'm given the chance to speak in table topics, I am given the chance to improve my spontaneous speaking skills, which is a far more important skill than prepared speaking. Because you can be a great prepared speaker, but it's not a guarantee that you'll be a great spontaneous speaker. But if you are a great spontaneous speaker, no doubt you will find it easy to prepare a speech, to read from a manuscript, to memorize a speech. That will be very easy. Spontaneous speaking is always the most difficult type or form of speaking. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone else who would like to share their experience during our breakout session? Were the questions difficult? Nice, yes, yes, thank you very much. It's always nice to really speak and share your stories. Nice accent. I hope it's my accent, but if it's not, that's fine. I am proud of my Filipino accent. Right, great way to get to know more the other countries. Yes, true, true. All right, let's proceed, ladies and gentlemen. Since time check, it's 11:08. I think we've reached our time. I'll wrap up so that we can conclude today's activity. All right. So while waiting for the slide, there are actually other activities that I have already excluded in today's exercise. I will include them in the handouts that we will be sending you. so that you can also practice them. I will be including a lot of exercises so that you can continue to practice spontaneous speaking, especially exercises on specifically improving your mastery of the four elements of spontaneous speaking: the acknowledge, anxiety, etc. All right. So, in conclusion, allow me to just share with you the Pomodoro technique. So, the Pomodoro technique is actually a time management technique that has been proven to be very effective by a lot of managers from Fortune 500 companies. Under the Pomodoro technique, it says that in order for you to master something, you need to spend at least around 25 to 30 minutes every day. All right, and this is how it works. Number one, decide on the task that you need to complete, or if it's spontaneous speaking, commit yourself to practice spontaneous speaking. Number two, set your timer to 25 minutes. All right, and then work on your task within the time limit or until the timer rings. After that, take a short break of 5 minutes and then repeat the process. That's why it's called Pomodoro technique, because it is based on the timer that is actually a tomato, right? Many says that this time management technique can also work well if you want to become more proficient in spontaneous speaking. I have tried it; it really worked. I have asked my some of my proteges to do this. It also worked with them. However, if you're going to apply or to use the Pomodoro technique, the caveat here is make sure that you will do this every day. It's almost similar to intermittent fasting. It will not work if you will not do it consistently. So if you cannot do it consistently, Pomodoro technique will not work for you. You can consider other time management techniques. But if you commit to using this technique, I can assure you it will help you master spontaneous speaking. Okay? And finally, final words for today's session. Jamil? All right. So everything boils down to three short statements, ladies and gentlemen. Everything we have discussed today can be summarized in three things: relax, take a deep breath, smile. If you do these three things, I can assure you, you will find spontaneous speaking very easy. Relax, because anything that is thrown to you is something that you can manage. Even if you cannot answer the question, there is always a way for you to respond. Take a deep breath. Why? Because that would definitely compose you. It will allow you to organize your thoughts. It will give you a moment of peace so that you can prepare your response. And then once you're ready to speak, open your eyes, smile, and start speaking. I can assure you, your audience will find you the most amiable person, speaker in front of them, and you will be successful. Spontaneous speaking is very important. It's very challenging, but I can assure you, once you master it, it's almost like you will master everything and anything else. So, if there are any other questions, fellow Toastmasters and ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to post your questions on the chat. If not, Jamil, can we post the last poll? Yes, there's a question from Julius. In the actual table topics contest, is it okay to repeat aloud the talking points? Yes, you can. The only caveat there, Julius, is if you repeat the talking point, you will actually be taking away seconds from your response time. But that's okay, because what is the advantage of repeating the talking point? It's actually reminding your contest master or the judges or the audience that you have understood the question. So repeating the question is actually a validation that you have heard the question and you understood the question. All right. Oh, thank you very much, Regina. Yes, I think the members of Imus Wagayway Toastmasters will talk to you about joining Toastmasters. All right. So, Jamil, are we ready with the last poll? If not, fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, feel free to contact me. You can email me. You can call me, but I don't normally answer my phone. I always leave my phone somewhere. I'm always available on Facebook. You can leave me a message on Facebook or Twitter. All right. So before that, kindly answer our last poll. I think Georgina's already answered this. If you are not yet a Toastmaster, we would like to know if you are interested to become a member of Toastmasters. All right, let's end the polling and let's share the results. Wow, amazing. So all 21 would like to be are interested in joining a Toastmaster. So Imus Wagayway, please reach out. Um, we actually tried to save the names for this poll. Apologies, by the way. For this poll, we have actually saved the names of the respondents so that the members of Imus Wagayway can reach out to you and explain to you the process of membership. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. If I don't respond to you immediately, it only means that I might be in another meeting or I'm busy or I might be in this post. Just bear with me. I will definitely respond to you. Sooner or later, I will respond to you. I do not leave any questions or any communication unanswered. So if there are no more questions, if you're hesitating to post your question in the chat, that's fine. You can privately message me on my contact details. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We hope that you have gained something from today's lecture, from today's workshop. And our commitment to you is we will be doing more of this for the benefit of both Toastmaster members and non-Toastmasters. In the time of the pandemic, as we are now, it is very important to focus on ourselves, equip us with new skills, with new capabilities, because I can assure you, after we have overcome the pandemic, these newly acquired skills and talents will help us to survive and to master the new normal that is waiting for us outside. So thank you very much. Have a good day. God bless you. I return control of today's session to our wonderful hosts, members of Imus Wagaybay, Sarah.
Thank you very much, DTM Nomel. Guys, let's give a virtual round of applause for DTM Nomel. That was really, like TM Julius mentioned, a value-adding workshop. And I do hope that everyone learned something new for today. And we all hope that these workshops, the lessons that you are learning, will definitely be a skill that you would use moving forward in this new world that we are living in, because definitely a lot will change because of COVID. Now, for those who are interested to become members of Toastmasters, I would encourage you to, we do have your registration information, and yes, we will also reach out to you. However, we would also appreciate it if you can just leave a message on our Facebook page, Imus Wagayway Toastmasters Club. That's at facebook.com/Imus Toastmasters. You can leave us a message there, just so it doesn't get plugged up into our minds. So yes, please like our page, Imus Wagayway, and we'll send you a message. We'll also send you, just like what DTM Nomel mentioned earlier, we will send you the PowerPoint presentation and some handouts that Sir Nomel has prepared for you. So again, thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with us. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being participative in our breakout session. Something to look forward to, the club, Imus Wagayway, is working on delivering more workshops, more special events in this season. So always check our Facebook page. Just a bit of a teaser, next Saturday will be an exciting workshop on how we can actually use our voice to become better presenters. And our guest
Wow.
for next Saturday is also another DTM from, of course, from Toastmasters. So every Saturday moving forward, we are working on delivering something special, something adding to our community, and we hope to see you next week again. So let's embrace the Zoom world. So I wish I could give everyone a hug, but social distancing is still a policy. Always keep safe, always wash your hands, and TM Jamil is requesting for us to, I'm sorry, picture, a group picture. So if you could request everybody to turn on your cameras, fix your hair a bit, even if half of us have not taken a bath this morning. TM Jamil, are you able to take a picture for us?
Hold on.
All right. So for Sir Neil, please send us the registration link for upcoming webinars. It's actually the same link. So everyone who has registered for today's meeting, today's workshop, will still continue receiving the next event's Zoom details. So make sure to always check your emails. Awesome. Are we ready, TM Jamil?
Hold on. Where is my snippet? There. All right. There will be a 3-second delay or 2 seconds. So pause for 2 seconds while I say picture. So pose your best pose.
Your
1, 2,
beauty pageant smile.
picture. All right. I've taken the first page. Now
Oh, there's
I'll
a
go to
second
the
page.
second page. Hold on. I'll just send this to someone as a clipboard. All right.
Also, a shout
There.
out to the members of Imuswagayway for helping us organize this
And
event.
then for the second page, please post your everyone. Just please post your I don't know if you're in the second page in your page, but here it is now. All right. Okay.
Is
There.
there a third page?
No, it's two
Oh, there
page
is
only.
awesome. So
Now we're
again,
done.
guys, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
this
you very much,
morning. See you
guys.
next week. Bye. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Bye.